Thank you, Laurie. Welcome everybody to the 2022 ACUHO Annual Business Meeting. I call this meeting to order at 3:06 p.m. Eastern Time, US. Some of you may be wondering why I'm hosting this meeting. Typically the president does. Pam Schreiber, who is the current ACUHO president, is actually with her Board of Regents today, presenting her rates for next year, something that all of us can certainly appreciate and commiserate with her. So we are sending her good thoughts that everything will go smoothly for her. There's a possibility she can pop in at the end depending on how the meeting goes, but she was afraid that where she was placed on the agenda that she wasn't going to be able to join us. So just briefly, this meeting is really to highlight a lot of what happened in the ACUHO in 2021, but then also look a little ahead as to what's coming down the road for 2022, even as we're a little over 2 months into that. I would like to appoint Von Stange from the University of Iowa as the parliamentarian for our meeting. Von, thank you very much for being willing to play that role. And at this point, I will turn it over to Leon McClinton, our president-elect, for the land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Pete. ACUHO's home office in Columbus, Ohio is located on the unceded ancestral lands of the Kaskaskia, Shawandestula, Mia, and Hopewell peoples. We acknowledge that the daily work of our association can occur in these places because of colonization and violation of these lands. Since we have so many of you present today, and you're coming from so many different places, I would like us to take a few moments of silence so you can individually acknowledge and reflect on the living history of the lands upon which you live and work. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. I'd like to remind attendees that there is a packet of information related to the meeting. You hopefully will have seen that already, but there's also going to be a link posted in the chat that you can get access to that if you haven't seen it by now. You may be aware that this is a little bit different timing for the annual business meeting. Typically, it would happen in either during the ACUHO conference and exposition in either June or July, or the past couple of years virtually in the same kind of time frame. We've moved it ahead to be close to the beginning of the year for a few logistical reasons, and it really did seem like a great opportunity for us to highlight what happened in the past year rather than wait until midsummer to talk with financials and some other things in particular that was fairly old news by that point. So definitely we're appreciate any feedback you might have about the timing of this and the format overall. So please reach out to us if you have any thoughts. Just another reminder that at the end of the meeting, there will be an opportunity to recognize colleagues that have retired or have passed away during the year. Some of that information was sent to us in advance, but there's also still an opportunity to add some names. So there'll be another link that'll be dropped in the chat to add those names, and we'll recognize those people at the end. So at this point, I would like to recognize the 2021 ACUHO Executive Board. Again, myself as the last year's president, so I'm not the immediate past president, Pam Schreiber, the president-elect from last year, and Leon as the ACUHO vice president. Josh Ganna as the Facilities and Physicals Environment Director, Julie Laos as the Regional Affiliations Director, Kenny Mock, the Business Practices and Enhancements, Lisa Freeman, Inclusion and Equity Director, Frankie Miner, Residence Education Director, Suzanne Price, Knowledge Enhancements Director, Kawana Leggett as the Workforce Development Director, Matthew Nelson as the Globalization Director, who is our primary point of contact for all of our colleagues all around the world, specifically not in North America. So certainly any folks in other locations on the globe, Matt's a great resource to reach out. We had 2 ex officio board members last year, Andrew Peterson with the small colleges and universities, and Louis Anoa as our Anti-Racism Initiatives Director. And then certainly, last but not least, Mary De Niro as the CEO, who will be joining me during this meeting and offering comments at various times. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Olin Garrett, who was the Finance and Corporate Records Officer last year and is the Finance and Corporate Records this year, so that he can kick us off with some of our business.
Thank you, Pete, and good afternoon, everyone. We're pleased to welcome you to today's meeting. The numbers I'll report on are based on the number of people who have registered. After the meeting, we will confirm attendance based on who has entered this webinar. There are currently 217 registered attendees at today's business meeting, representing 199 organizations. We expect some members to join us during the course of the meeting. For voting purposes, as stated in the ACUHO Constitution, any vote related to amending the Constitution must have 2/3 of quorum to pass. Luckily, all other business items are approved by a simple majority, including the one item that needs to be voted on today, the 2021 annual business meeting minutes. The minutes from the 2021 annual business meeting were shared via email with the voting delegates in attendance last year, asking for corrections and feedback. The minutes were then shared with the executive board, who operate as the minutes approval committee to complete the final review and approve the minutes before being brought forward to the membership. Are there any objections for the 2021 annual business meeting minutes as distributed? Please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand if you have an objection. Seeing no objections, I will ask for a motion to approve the 2021 annual business meeting minutes as distributed. To offer a motion, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand now. I recognize Frankie Miner of the University of Rhode Island as making the motion. I will now ask for a second motion to approve the 2021 annual business meeting minutes. Please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand. I recognize Teddy Martinez from the University of Alabama, Birmingham with the second. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented or amended, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand at this time. Looks like we may be catching up just a little bit. Okay. Apologies, your raised hands are just now catching up to my screen. So. Very good, thank you. All opposed, please use the Zoom menu to raise your hand at this time. All right. Very good, thank you. The minutes of the 2021 annual business meeting are accepted as written. I'll turn the floor back over to Pete.
Great, thank you, Olin, appreciate it. So I have the pleasure as the immediate past president of the association to provide some highlights from what happened during 2021. Needless to say, and no surprise to anybody, 2021 was a very difficult year and a very unusual year for all of us individually, those of us on our campuses, and then certainly as the association overall. But I'm very pleased and honored to say that a lot of good work was still accomplished during the year, even though we were not able to ever meet in person. Everything was done virtually, and through the efforts of volunteers, staff, our foundation partners, and corporate members, and everybody who's involved in ACUHO. I thank you in advance thank you for all that was done last year to make the association so successful. Lori, you can go to the next slide. So one group that I certainly want to thank and highlight is the Reentry into Fall 2021 work group. They did some amazing work to pull information together to help each of us on our campuses and individually to figure out how we were going to start to come out of COVID and bring our students back to campus or have our students be in a slightly more typical environment. Many of these folks also served on the Future of Housing Work Group, so they did double duty in helping us identify the issues immediately at the front end of the pandemic, and then this second group to help us figure out how we would move out of it in a logical way, even as things kept changing and lots of balls in the air, so to speak. And in particular, I'd like to thank Dan Pedersen, who chaired the group, and Holly from the central office, who certainly did a lot of work to help make this group successful. Next slide. Again, in the advocacy area, there was two sets of members that we worked very closely with this year as part of our strategic plan, live-in staff and those that work at small colleges and universities. And in our working with them, it became very clear that they wanted an opportunity to be able to connect with each other throughout the year, separate from whatever events and symposia and things like that we might have on the docket. So we've set up 2 networks to allow them to have that space to be able to connect with each other. Likewise, with everything that was going on with anti-racism, initiatives and things like that, and listening to our professionals of color, while they greatly enjoyed being part of the Professionals of Color Network for those who wanted to participate, there was also a desire to be able to also reach out to folks on a more focused level with folks that shared some of the same identities that they did. So these two, the APIDA network and the Latinx network was also set up, and they've been very successful so far. Next. On the research and information front, we were very lucky to have our partnership with NESE as well as the ACUHO Foundation in providing funding to do a lot of great research on the importance of living on campus. Not only was it great data that certainly backed up the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, but we were able to share this information in various forms. Looking at if you look at the screen, the information was structured to reach different populations, whether it be our colleagues on campus, whether it be families, or whether it be senior administration. And this information, hopefully you all been using it on your campus. If you haven't, I would certainly encourage that you do so. But we do have examples of institutions that have really dug into this and shared this information and been very successful in having it impact different things they've been able to do on campus. Specifically, Oklahoma State has shared some information about what they're doing. Next. Hopefully you all are aware that we've changed the venue for our annual conference and exposition that will be happening this summer. Originally, it was slated to be in Florida, and due to some legislation that had been passed a while ago, ACUHO did not feel that matched up with our values and the values of our members and member institutions. So we made the decision to relocate the conference to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you've been paying attention to the news and some of the very recent legislation that's come out of Florida, it looks as though that was absolutely the right decision to make. But we do appreciate the understanding and support of our colleagues in Florida and our colleagues in ACUHO as we made that decision to relocate the conference. And we're looking forward to seeing many, if not all of you there, when we meet together in Pittsburgh for our first in-person event since February of 2020. Next slide. During the COVID period, where so much was changing on a very regular basis, we were doing so much on our campuses to keep up with all those changes, and the staff was stretched to pivot after pivot after pivot to provide the services and products, conferences, things like that we come to expect from ACUHO. It was critical for us to partner with other professional organizations, and here are just a few of the examples of ways that we did partner. Thanks to all the volunteers and the staff that worked with these different organizations and made these different activities happen, or pulled off these different things. So again, just leveraging the effectiveness the association can have when working with professionals in other areas within student affairs and even outside of student affairs. And then here's just some examples of some new events that we've had this past year, again, focusing on live-in and the small colleges and universities, which were two of our focus areas over the past couple of years. And then with the Aspiring Directors Institute, again, another partnership with different organizations to help the field, help student affairs overall, and not just the housing and residence life portion of that. So one last comment I would like to make, just as the immediate past president, one of my responsibilities is to chair the nominations committee. That process has just launched for us to fill 4 executive board positions for the 2023 board. So please consider whether you're interested in running for any of those positions or interested in nominating anyone for those positions. Information has gone out via email a couple times now, so look for those emails, and there's links there to look at the positions and look at how to nominate folks. So at this point, I am going to turn it back over to Olin for his financial report.
Thank you, Pete. And I'm excited to be able to share with you some highlights of the association financial picture for the last year. So let's start by talking a little bit about ACUHO's asset position. Laura, if we can go to the next slide. As you may know, ACUHO's fiscal year follows the calendar year. As of December 31st, 2021, the association held assets totaling $6.4 million, which is a 23.7% increase, $1.1 million over where we were at the same point in 2020. That increase in assets has to do with the fact that, one, we recognize positive rates of return from our market investments in 2021 to the tune of about a 7% return on investment, but that the association was also able to take advantage of 2 particular loan programs to bring additional liquid funds into the association. One was the Economic Injury Disaster Loan that was offered by the U.S. Small Business Administration, which allowed us to borrow money for 30 years at a very, very low interest rate and be able to pay that back, bringing in additional assets. But also, we also took out loan proceeds from the Paycheck Protection Program, which was designed for folks to be able to pay for staffing and other things. We actually got that loan forgiven this year. And so as a result of the forgiveness, those loan proceeds turned to revenue. Next slide. This slide shares data related to the overall financial health of the association. And by all measures, we are on strong financial footing. The principal measure of financial health is our ability to fund our operations. As you can see, association policy is to be able to have enough liquid assets on hand to fund our budgeted expenses for 6 months. We are well beyond that in terms of both our net liquid assets as well as our cash flow money going in and out. The operating ratios refer to our ability to pay our debts and have assets on hand relative to our liabilities. Those ratios are actually stellar. And about 70% of our expenses are programmatic expenses, which is very good for an association and speaks to the value members are getting for their money. I've already spoken about most of what's in the debt section. I do want to share that the association worked with a local credit union to secure a business line of credit in 2021 that would allow us to borrow money as needed to help cover costs and expenses. And as part of establishing that line of credit, we restructured our mortgage for the ACUHO office at 1445 Summit Street. That mortgage was restructured at a lower interest rate than we were paying and at no additional out-of-pocket expense. I'm pleased to share that we have not tapped into that business line of credit. And in the other key indicators section, I do want to make a note about the overall drop in membership. It is important to note that while that number, the 13.9% drop, is significant, we are doing better in retaining membership than our other sister organizations, which are reporting drops in membership of between 20 and 25%. So we're in good financial health. Next slide. At this time, our mix of short and long-term investments is managed both by ACUHO and our partners at Merrill Lynch. We typically like to manage investments 1/3 by ACUHO, 2/3 by Merrill Lynch. At the end of 2021, we landed at a 43-57 ratio. We keep a diversified portfolio of fixed income and stock investments and typically follow a moderately conservative model of investing that provides for moderate returns and mitigates market fluctuations. We do have an investment policy that is reviewed annually by our investment manager, as well as the Association Finance Committee and Executive Board. And I talked about achieving a 7.4% rate of return. Next slide. As a result of the increases in cash and investments from the forgiveness of the Paycheck Protection Plan money, economic injury disaster loan proceeds, and positive market returns, as well as expenses coming in lower than originally expected, the association ended 2021 with a significant budget gain. We planned for an investment of just over $115,000 based on revenues of $2.76 million and planned expenses of $2.83 million, Our preliminary year-end figures for 2021 indicate that ACUHO realized a gain of over $500,000. You can now also see how we fared in 2021 compared to the 3 fiscal years prior. Please note that these numbers are preliminary and remain subject to review and audit, which will take place later this year. Next slide. The budget was impacted by several significant operational factors. You've already heard Pete talk about the new events that we had this year, and we continue to deliver all events in a virtual format. We also experienced significant growth in the number of individuals attending our events, 6,200 in 2021. This is due to the access created by our virtual offerings, as well as affordable individual registration rates that were set at 75 to 90% less than our in-person rates, and the popularity of team access passes that allow multiple individuals from the same institution to attend a ACUHO event at particularly discounted rates. Scholarships were reimagined considering the shift to virtual formats. TPE was stronger financially compared to 2020, and we began to see memberships slowly return, as well as a successful implementation of institutional multi-year memberships. We do continue to be concerned about recapturing memberships that have lapsed and are continuing to put in efforts to navigate that. Online course enrollments were lower compared to 2020. We also continue to make difficult but necessary decisions about how to control expenses. Travel and professional development remain suspended. The Journal and the Talking Stick experienced their first full year of digital-only delivery, and the decision was made to move the October conference series virtual, for which the association paid out some expenses due to contract cancellations. It should also be noted that the association experienced significant staffing changes in the Columbus office in 2021. 7 staff members, 6 full-time and 1 part-time, left the office, resulting in both increased expense due to the payout of vacation time and other terminating benefits, as well as cost savings from positions being unfilled for a significant period of time. Positions are being posted and refilled strategically by Mary and the ACUHO staff, but rehire timelines are taking 12 weeks or longer. Some duties have been realigned among staff members, and 2 new positions were approved by the executive board that will be hired sometime this year. Next slide. Finally, a quick note about how we have fared financially over time. Over the last 10 years, the association's assets have grown by 70%, from $3.75 million in 2012 to over $6 million today. While our assets have appreciated over time, it is well documented that we had to make significant decisions, to ensure the viability of the association during the pandemic, and the revenue expense graph on the right indicates the impact on association revenues and expenses. For the year ending 12/31, you can see that revenues increased relative to where they were in 2020, while the association continued to make prudent fiscal and financial decisions to limit our expenses. As always, ACUHO would not be in the strong financial position it's in without the sustained leadership and effort of many parties, including the Executive Board and Finance Committee, Mary's leadership as CEO, and the work of Senior Director for Finance and Administration, Sheila Meyer, and the ACUHO finance team. Please join me in thanking them for their work. That concludes my report, and I yield the floor back to Pete.
Thank you very much, Olin. That was great information to be able to share with the membership. At this time, I will turn it over to Mary as the CEO for the CEO report.
Thank you, everybody. As I think about 2021, I have been thinking a lot about what ACUHO stands for, the campus housing professionals we serve, and the ways that we're making an impact for them. The events of the past few years have only strengthened my sense of responsibility and that of the staffs to be the preeminent resource and champion for the global campus housing profession. I continue to be incredibly grateful and inspired by the amazing work and the perseverance of all of you, our members, our volunteer leaders, our industry partners. I am honored and humbled by your contributions to the profession and the contributions you make to each other. It's a really interesting and powerful mix of volunteer leaders, ACUHO staff, our members that contribute to a very rich conversation and the powerful learning environments that professionals at all career levels have said that they so desperately need and they want from ACUHO. 2021, we returned to what I think was kind of normal or a new normal of virtual only delivery models. And in a lot of ways, that was really exciting because in 2021, we kind of knew what we were doing. And you saw some of the results, at least the financial results, and there are engagement results that are equally as good. At the same time, we were steadfast in our commitment to the implementation and the priorities set forth by the ACUHO Executive Board through what was our new strategic plan. In addition to presenting everything virtually, we added new programs, as Pete mentioned. He talked about the Small Colleges and University and the Live-in Staff Symposium. We also took the Rolf Visser South African Training Institute completely virtual. And so, you know, a lot was going on in 2021, including more than 100 virtual roundtables and webinars, which served as easy access points for thousands of professionals around the globe to gain and to share knowledge about critical issues facing the profession. It was also a place for us to provide dedicated spaces for professionals to network with peers. And I would just stress again, this was an easy way for people to connect. And it was a free way for people to connect because we opened it up to the profession. I'd like to share a few other updates on some key decisions that were made in 2021 or maybe a little bit before, but you're going to see the effect in 2022. The first one is the Executive Board approved ACUHO to be part of the consortium Partners for Student Affairs Education Certification. It launches this summer. We extend our thanks to NASPA for leading this very important initiative. As you can see, we are amongst really good company in the student affairs world. This is certainly a way for people to demonstrate their ongoing learnings, their competencies, and knowledge, including expanding into multiple areas. We think that there are going to be a lot of people who are in other areas who want to learn about housing because they're going to need that to advance in their career. And we think many of our members are going to need to understand some other functions so that they can advance into senior leadership roles and demonstrate that they can manage multiple function areas, which I know many of you are doing now. It's also a way to focus and help you think about your professional development planning. You know, we think that this is a way to also help us fill the gaps around topics that may not have been included when many were going through their master's degree or getting their terminal degree. And of course, it helps further the credibility and the integrity to students' affairs and all the work that we do to support students and the university. I'd now like to talk a little bit about the placement exchange. It's next week. We are thrilled with the amount of participation that is happening with it. In 2021, NASPA and ACUHO made the decision to permanently move TPE to a virtual platform. This was one demonstration of both organizations aligning our goals, and we believe the goals of our member institutions, and that is to create and address the primary barriers for engagement of our candidates and many universities who are recruiting, and that's access. The virtual environment allows us to cultivate a diverse and robust group of student affair folks or folks who want to be in it, but it drastically reduces the registration costs, both for the candidates and for the employers. It eliminates travel costs, lodging costs, and this is especially impactful for our candidates. You know, in 2020 and before that, you all were on the same social media sites that I was on, and we heard the horror stories of some who were going into debt to get their first job to attend TPE. We also heard from our small colleges and universities that sometimes it was just too rich for them to attend. This is a big change. And it's a big change to an important program. And there are probably a lot of you who are excited.
Oh, is that right?
Some of you might be surprised, and there's potentially a number of you who are disappointed. We recognize change is hard, but we've all lived through change so much in the last 2 years, and we're coming out of this, we think, in a better position for all who are concerned. Please know that these decisions are being made thoughtfully and purposefully, and the outcomes are being led by the volunteers and professionals who truly understand your concerns. And finally, I would like to share the news about a very, very generous gift that was made to the ACUHO Research and Education Foundation. In 2021, December, and for I see Tim and Greg on the call, the final days of December, reslife.net, the business and the assets were given as a charitable donation to the foundation. With this gift, the product will be able to continue to be offered to campuses and be offered to as a valuable service, as well as to our future members. It also gives ACUHO the opportunity to extend the brand and to think about what other additional services might you all need and be provided by the association. Certainly, on behalf of the executive board and the foundation trustees, I would like to give my very personal thanks to the founders, Terry, Greg, Tim Johnson, Dave, Kim. These are the people who created reslife.net. They created it over 20 years ago, and their vision was for reslife.net to be an affordable and accessible online educational service for residence life and campus housing professionals. I'd like to give a special recognition to Terry. She became the president, and she was the primary architect of the company and its products. With support from colleagues and friends and family, Terry spearheaded the creation of the Judicial Educator, Raised, and all the content and services on reslife.net. We will be forever grateful for this gift. Thank you. And Pete, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing that information. And certainly we all appreciate the significant donation that reslife.net what is to the association and to the profession. At this time, I'd like to ask Shannon Staten, the past chair of the foundation, to make some remarks.
Well, hello. I'm really excited to be here today and to be part of this, and look forward to seeing everyone in person in June. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to highlight some of the work and the things that we did this year with Foundation. So if you can cue up my first slide, I would appreciate it. We are serving as the chair of the foundation for 2021 was an absolute pleasure. Please let me say that. We were able to take a second year of pandemic, but based on what we learned in 2020 and how we knew we wanted to move forward for 2022, we were able to be pretty successful in our work. The one thing we tried was to really focus on the different things that would celebrate who we are as ACUHO. As you know, and hopefully heard, we were celebrating the 70th anniversary campaign, which was our 70th year of coming together as colleagues to network and learn from each other in conference style. So we really wanted to highlight that's a long time, and we hope to go another 70 years or more. So we spent a lot of time on two primary goals. As we thought about raising money for this campaign, we wanted, one, to have as many members participate as possible. We wanted to get first-time donors to come and participate in our events, in our sessions, and in donating. And then we also wanted to have others return who have given in the past. We were able to have, over the year, 684 unique donors because of that work, and during a pandemic when none of us came together in person. So we thought that was really a great accomplishment. The rich history of 70 years was something we were proud of, so we tried to highlight some of those things. And we had members that were participating in different events where they could share that information and knowledge as well. As we move forward, we thought we wanted to make $70,000 as part of our campaign. We far exceeded that. We had a total of $145,000 raised for the 70th anniversary campaign. And if you donated, you should have already received or will be soon receiving your lapel pin for the 1951 Club. And that's been a very popular emblem to show that you were part of that process. This money contributed to the overall $477,000 that we were able to raise through the foundation for the association this last year. I need to acknowledge and want to acknowledge that part of that $145,000 was raised due to the generous support of the Lee Thompson Senior Family and Southwest Contract and Carmen L. Vance, both of whom issued matching pledges to the membership during the campaign. Another $44,000 was raised in our regions during the virtual conference as well. Throughout the year, I mentioned before, 684 unique donors contributed to this. That's something to be proud of when you think about how other organizations lost interest from their members and what was happening. We were gaining it, we were having fun, and we were being able to support our goals of what we wanted to do with it. Additionally, we updated the endowment management policy and the operational standards policies. We are trying to review all of our policies over a period of time and to make sure that they are up to date for the current needs of our membership and the way we should be managing those. Then you also heard Mary's news about the gift from reslife.net. Thank you from us. We feel that we are so excited to be able to accept this gift, knowing that ACUHO will be able to expand on it, to be able to provide it to our members. And so many of our members were already participating with it, that this is a great way to continue that. We can go to the next slide, please. This shows you that the strategic investment for pillars by pillar and what we try to do. We look at annually what's going on, where we are within the strategic plan. This year we've started some new last year some new strategic initiatives with an updated plan. And so I just wanted to show that under these 4 pillars, then we determine how much money we need to raise or can provide from the foundation to the association to meet their goals of the strategic plan. So the foundation's supportive initiatives this year was 70.7% of the money needed, and that went into different ones. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you how that money was used. So many times we're asked, how do we spend the money? Why do we need it? Well, this will show you a little bit of what we've tried to do. So our support was the 70.7%. You can see in these pillars that we really focus the foundation support on the knowledge resources and on the and on the community development. Leonard asked a question in the chat a little bit ago, and Mary, I think you're probably going to try to answer that. But what are we trying to do for the underserved campuses and populations of our members? And the community piece does some of that. We really wanted to see the efforts of pulling communities together, of providing opportunities for those that are underserved, that they may participate in different ways or in additional opportunities. And so part of the money we've raised has gone toward that and some of those initiatives and with everything we were doing. We're happy to be able to fund the research grants that we have in the past and other knowledge resources, knowing that it's pulling together what we need for our members. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, that I'm a member of several organizations, as many of you are. And I thought ACUHO has done about the best job in the last 2 years of providing opportunities for my staff and myself to participate, whether it's in webinars or panel discussions, just different FaceTime opportunities, conferences, educational moments. And so again, as being part of the foundation, we're happy that we've been able to help fund some of that and to keep that going, but very grateful for an association who made sure it happened and we were able to provide that. I could go on longer about how proud I am to work with the colleagues of the foundation board. I can encourage any of you, if you want to participate in a worthwhile volunteer piece of where you can help make a difference to our members, call me. We'll talk and we'll get you involved. But as I worked with this group, I was so proud of them, proud of their energy, proud of everything that they did, and really want to reemphasize that that 70th anniversary campaign was so rejuvenating and so invigorating for our members that participated, that it brought people to us that had never really thought about donating before. And then they did it in a way that made them feel connected and have mentioned to us that they want to continue. So we're trying to work with that and proud of that. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as the chair last year. And this year, I'm just trying to keep supporting the new chair, Shana Austin, and you will hear from her many times this year, I'm sure. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you so much for that information, and certainly thank you and the rest of the 2021 board for all the success that you had with your fundraising, all of which, of course, is geared towards supporting the association and supporting what our members do and the educational and other opportunities we're able to present to them. So thank you once again, and thanks also to the staff that supports the work of the foundation as well. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Mary in Pam's absence to give a little bit of a look towards what's going to be coming up in 2022.
Thanks, Pete. And Lori, I'm going to ask you to advance the slide. So on behalf of Pam, it's such an honor to be able to step in for her. She has been a wonderful leader like Pete before him and Vaughn and all the other past presidents that are on this call. So I'm going to read Pam's comments. And first, we would like to begin by introducing you to the members of the 2022 Executive Board. President-elect is Leon McClinton, Vice President Gabe Perez, Finance and Corporate Records Officer Owen Garrett, Resident Education Director Bobby Cole, Facilities, Physical Environment Josh Ganna, Workforce Development Stephanie Lynch, Inclusion and Equity Director Yeti Marquez Santana, Globalization Matt Nelson, Knowledge Enhancement Suzanne Price, Regional is Nairi Tryman, and Steve Herndon is the Future of the Profession Director that Pam appointed as an ex officio member. And remember, I'm reading Pam's comments. This group of distinguished professionals is already well into their respective areas of responsibilities, and it is my honor to be working with them. In addition to the contributions, the many, many programs and services that form the backbone of ACUHO member benefits, the executive board, the staff, and many volunteer leaders continue to focus on the priorities of the association as expressed in our 2021 to 23 strategic plan. We are currently in year 2 of that 3-year plan. Serving as the basis for that plan are the ACUHO pillars of education, knowledge resources, community, and influential leadership and advocacy. We are paying particular attention to 2 key values of the association: diversity, equity, inclusion, and partnerships. We are also focusing on effective and meaningful ways on 2 key audiences: professionals who work at small colleges and universities and live-in staff. Finally, it has become quite clear that our professional work is and must adapt in order for us to continue to serve residential students in ways that contribute to their learning and development, their affinity to their respective institutions and each other, and the development of skills so that they can live a fulfilling and healthy life. Under Pete's leadership, the Future of the Profession project was initiated and will be conducted under the leadership of Steve Herndon. The project seeks to conduct a deep dive into the work we do and how we will do it, with the intended goal of providing members resources and tools for re-envisioning their campus housing programs in response to the current and still emerging challenges we face. This is critical work, and we will continue to communicate with you as progress is made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary/Pam. Appreciate that look forward, and looking forward to everything that the association can accomplish during this upcoming year. At this point, we are going to move into new business. The executive board is not putting any motions in front of the membership at this time, but if there's any motion that anybody would like to make, if you would use the raise hand function, then we will call on you and unmute you. Seeing none, I guess we will go ahead and move forward. So this ends the formal part of the business meeting. But at this time, we do want to recognize members that have retired from the profession and or have passed away. So those retiring members that we were notified about, as you can see on the screen, Luther Gremmels from University of West Alabama and Clarissa Simpson from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And no other names have been submitted so far during the meeting, but if you do want to do that now, they will be reflected in the minutes of the meeting. And then to recognize those members that have passed away since our last meeting, Dr. Bill Foster, Mississippi State University, and Dan Ocampo from Seattle University. If at this time we could just take a couple of moments of silence to recognize these colleagues of ours that have passed. Thank you very much. So at this time, certainly would like to recognize the outgoing board members, those that were on the 2021 board who have fulfilled their terms and cycled off the board. So Lisa is Inclusion and Equity, Julie is Regional Affiliations, Frankie Residence Education, Kawana Workforce Development, and Lewis and Andrew in their two ex officio roles of anti-racism initiatives and small colleges and universities. Certainly thank them and everybody who served on the board last year for all of the hard work and success that we have. And that certainly, congratulate the current board and all the work that they're doing. My apologies. At the end of the new business, I did mean to circle back on the question that Leonard raised in the chat and that Shannon made a reference to. And Mary, I think I'll defer to you on maybe some of the details about this, but certainly minority serving institutions are a part of our strategic plan in the community section, specifically their reference, but certainly in a lot of the initiatives and efforts that the association does. So Mary, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Sure. There's a couple of initiatives that I would like to share. One is a joint membership between NERSA, ACUI, and ACUHO for our HBCU colleagues. They're able to bundle all three memberships into one at a reduced rate and take advantage of the memberships that we all offer for our institutional members. In addition, we do offer a special rate for HBCUs for some of our programs like NHTI. That rate differential is paid for by some of the funds raised by the foundation. In addition, Leonard, when we were in person, he helped us host HBCU Roundtables, and that will happen again in 2022 while we're in Pittsburgh. It happens the day before ACE kicks off, and it's a way for HBCUs to get together and to talk about those things are most important to them. We certainly are looking for ways to engage them, and some of the efforts that we had planned sort of got stalled, like many things because of COVID. But if anybody has ideas or suggestions, we're working with a few of them and would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Mary. I'm noticing in the chat that a number of folks are being recognized as having retired from the profession, so we would certainly recognize them in the minutes. Dan Miser from Texas A&M, Jim Smart, University of Miami, Sean Dugan from Texas Tech, Karen Corley, Michigan State University. Alan Hargrave was actually recognized last year at the same time. Kathy Bickle from Ball State University. Kim Batchel, Sam Houston State. Bill McCartney, East Carolina University. I think that catches everybody. So, but if any others come to mind, please reach out to the staff and we'll make sure that those get added into the permanent record of the association. So with no other business to attend to and reaching the end of our agenda, I certainly thank all of you for attending this particular session, but for all the work that you do on behalf of your campuses, the profession overall, and then certainly for ACUHO and the ACUHO Foundation. So this organization couldn't exist without the time, talent, and efforts of our volunteers, of course, as well as the staff and other folks that help out with what we do. So appreciate your time and attention during this meeting. I adjourn the meeting at 3:57 p.m. Eastern Time, US. If you have any reason to need to reach out to us, here's some contact information here. Don't hesitate to contact us. And once again, thank you all very much and have a good day.